Welcome to the Vision Driven Basketball Training Podcast. Thank you guys for listening or watching. Shout out to all of you guys who are on YouTube right now, checking into the podcast. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you are new on YouTube. And of course, everybody who's listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever else you listen to your podcasts on. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in today. I want to start off today's episode a little bit differently. I'm always asking you guys to leave reviews, and I figured, actually, I think I mentioned it last episode, that if there's a review that I like or a review whatever, like I was just going to go ahead and read it on the show. And I just decided, like, you know what? I don't have that many reviews that, like, you know, I have a good amount of reviews in terms of people who just, like, leave the 5 stars, but there's people who, like, leave a review, not just a rating. I've got a few, so I figured I'd just read all of them, okay? Only about, like, 7 of them here, so real quick. So I think this is going to be a weekly thing that I do. If I get new reviews where someone leaves a comment on their review, then I'll go ahead and just read that at the beginning of each episode, beginning or end, at some point during each. So if you guys want to have me read what you write, go ahead and scroll down on Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Let me know what you think, and I'll go ahead and I'll read it. So I'll start from the oldest ones. This is from June. So shout out to this guy. I don't know. He's kind of just got a bunch of random letters as his name. Just says, great podcast, 5 out of 5. Appreciate that. Next one from KPEB123, a bunch of letters. I've been watching this guy's YouTube channel and listening to his podcast. He's been so helpful so far. Every video he makes helps me become a better player and teammate. Love to hear that. Appreciate the support. Next one, September of this year, from TikTok. Great podcast. This channel is best, especially if you're a hooper and trying to make it. Thank you. Appreciate that. Next one from December, from B Ramsey 24. Best podcast you will find for ... I'm assuming that is going to say basketball. Coach Ethan has helped my game a lot. He brings a lot of value and is dedicated to helping other hoopers become better, and all for free. Thanks, Coach. Keep it up. Appreciate the support, B Ramsey. And then my last one from the Splash Brothers, which shout out to the Splash Brothers, commenting on everything. I always, like, as soon as I saw that name, I was like, oh yeah, I know the Splash Brothers. Commenting on everything. And actually just joined the Perimeter Score system last week. So shout out to the Splash Brothers. He writes, easiest 5 stars ever. Coach Ethan has carried my quarantine, and without him, I would be bored out of my mind and not know what drills and workouts to do. This podcast is definitely one of the highlights of my week, and was suggested to young basketball players looking to get better. So again, Splash Brothers, thank you for that. Shout out to all you guys who have left reviews. Like I said, guys, I'm going to start doing this every episode if I get any more reviews. I'll go ahead and I'll read those. So if you have not left a review, go ahead and scroll down, leave that for me, let me know what you think. And let's hop into it now. So I want to talk a little bit about creativity today. We're going to kind of tie it into a couple different topics. But I essentially want to talk about why I'm so big on creativity, why I preach it so much. And why, like, I basically have an element of it in every workout at this point. Like, every workout that I do, really with any player, regardless of skill level, to be honest with you, in every workout that I do, for the most part on YouTube, like my last few workouts that I posted, the workouts on my programs, like everything, not everything is creative, but every workout for the most part has some sort of element of creativity to it. And there's a reason for that, and there's a reason that I feel very strongly about that. And I want to kind of break that down. So I've talked a little bit about this before when it comes to ball handling, but I think it's way more than just ball handling. Ball handling is probably the easiest way to see it and how creativity would be important, but there's other areas as well that also very, very important when it comes to this. So I wanted to go through that today. I always say, like, you guys have probably heard me say this if you listen to the show for a while, but basketball is a game of solving problems. So it's not just a game of who's better, who can make more shots, you know, who knows X's and O's better. Of course, that's a big part of it, right? But at the end of the day, you have to be able to solve problems because there's 5 guys on the team who are trying to stop you, and you've got to be able to overcome that. So that's why it's super important that your ability to solve problems, your ability to be creative and find solutions is as important as pretty much anything else that you can do on the court. Okay, as good of a shooter as you might be, you've got to be able to solve a problem where, okay, you're getting face guarded now, right? Your defender's not helping off you. He's facing you the whole time. So what do? Okay, you might be a really great ball handler, but are you still a great ball handler when a trap is coming at you? Okay, are you still a great ball handler when they put their best defender on you? So there's a lot of problems that are going to get thrown at you, and it's about your ability to overcome those, to solve those problems. And we can even think about it in a much more simpler way. When you're in the game, there's never going to be two plays that are exactly the same. So a lot of times in practice, we're just repping things over and over and over, the exact same. When in a game, you're not going to find the same exact situation twice in a row. They might be very, very similar, but they're not going to be exactly the same. There's going to be maybe there's a different defender on you who might be a little bit more athletic or less athletic. Maybe the help defender who comes across the paint is a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, right? There's going to be little subtle differences within every single play. So it's important that our training can mimic that in some regard. So, again, just to kind of go back to what I mean by creativity, what I mean is that you just don't have a predetermined move or a predetermined shot or a predetermined finish that you're going to every single time. So, for example, if you're going to go out and you're going to do, 50-pound crossover stationary, right? That would obviously not be a creative-based drill because you're just, repeating the same thing over and over again. Now, what I want, and I want to emphasize this, guys, but I'm not saying that there's no room for stuff that isn't creative. I'm not saying that doing pound crossovers is a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all, because that's something that I might throw into a workout depending on who I'm working out with, depending on what I'm trying to get out of that. It certainly has its place, okay? I'm just kind of giving you guys an example with that off the bat. So with all three of those, right, with ball handling, which is very easy to talk about creativity, shooting and finishing as well are also kind of in that category. There's a very big part of it, like a very big opportunity to add that creativity element and get much more out of it than if you didn't do it. Okay, so when you think about it like what we just went through, in a game, there's so much that can change every play. And you want to be prepared because of your training that you can adapt to those little things that are going to change. Which is why, if all that you do when it comes to your ball handling is repeated moves, so, your ball handling routine looks like, okay, I get up and I do pound between cross, pound between behind, pound double cross, I switch hands, and then I go through my cones and I do cross, and then, between, and then behind, whatever. Like, you're just going through kind of robotically repeating everything. You might have the physical skills to handle the basketball, but when it comes to just being a guy who's instinctually able to, make the right play, when the defender jumps and cuts them off, they're able to just, boom, cross back over the other way, even if something that they might have to practice. Something that you'll see if you watch a lot of NBA players, really anybody who's just a good player in general. It doesn't have to be NBA players, but that's a great example. Watching like Steph Curry, for example, a lot of the stuff that Steph Curry does isn't something that he's explicitly practiced. Some of the moves that he makes, they aren't moves that he's repped out a million times. A lot of them are bits and pieces of other moves that he's worked on, but they all kind of mesh together because that's what the situation calls for. So he might come down the court and the defender reaches for the ball, so he's got to go quick behind his back, and then he's got to go in and out, and then another defender steps up, so he goes backwards between his legs, and then he hits a floater, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, that's crazy! Like, I wonder how many times he's worked." He probably has never done that exact move before, right? Maybe he has. But I'm saying he probably never has worked on that move extensively, that exact triple combo into that floater, right? And even if he has, he probably hasn't worked on it from that exact spot before. But he's able to take bits and pieces of all the other stuff that he's done because he has the ability to be creative and, again, overcome and adapt to problems that he sees, problems that he faces. Okay? That's the point I'm trying to make with all of this sort of stuff. When you take your finishing, for example, like if the help defender is a little bit late, your finish might look a little bit different. Okay? If the help defender is a little bit early, then it might look a little different as well. If the help defender is a 7-footer, it's probably gonna look a little different as opposed to that help defender being 5'6". Okay, so how can we take that into account with our training? And again, a lot of you guys I know are working out by yourself, so I want to tailor that to you guys because my answer, above all, is play more basketball. Put yourself in situations where you can kind of control that. So we might play a one-on-one where you're going to bring a help defender across the lane. Like, that's stuff that we can talk about too, and I'll dive into a little bit at the end. But for you guys who are by yourself, what can you do to make sure that you can still develop that sort of instinctual way of reacting and being able to overcome situations that you face. And a big part of it is making sure that, when you're playing, when you're going through your drills, you have times where you're able to kind of just experiment, right? You're kind of able to just go, and a big part of it is imagination, right? And that's something that I want to get into. But if we're, like I said, if we're going to train to be able to score against a defender who's late in help, or a guy who's not very big, or a guy who is big, then our finishes are going to have to look a little bit differently. The timing is a little bit different. You might have to go off of your outside foot for one. You might have to go floater for one. You might have to go 2-foot finish for another one. Like, there's going to be different situations for that. So can we allow room in your training for that sort of thing? And kind of an example of that would be, right, if we're doing a drill where I just posted a workout on YouTube a couple weeks ago where we were doing 0.5 decisions, so working on attack and closeouts, and I wasn't giving any specific finishes to go to, right? We worked on 2-foot finishing, but when we got to the actual like attack and closeouts part, like that was kind of do like finish in kind of whatever way you want. So that's a situation where you can be creative with the finishes that you go to. Okay, so you might have one time where you're going 2-foot finish, right? You might have one time where you're going jump stop, pump fake, and then you go. You might have one where you're going off your outside foot. You might have one where you're going floater. You might go spin for one of them. There's a bunch of different situations that you can go to, a bunch of different moves that you can use, and that's why I like to give that sort of freedom there, where it's like, okay, you're able to kind of go to any sort of finish that you want, so that, again, when you're in a game, you're not just limited to, if I tell you in our workout, okay, you have to go this finish, and that's all we do, then if you're in a game and you can't go that finish, you're not going to be able to do anything else, okay? Again, I'm not discounting the fact that there might be drills where I say, listen, we got to do this finish. You got to finish off 2 feet. You got to finish with a pump fake, and then you might have to, go with a step through, or you might have to go off of, your outside foot, or you might have to go floater right here, okay? But there's going to be an element where you get to decide what you do. You have to choose what the best option is. And the kind of the basis for this is the block training versus random training. I've talked about this before, but to kind of give you guys a brief rundown, random training is what I'm talking about here. So creativity, that's random, okay? Random training basically just means that the experiences, the stressors that you're exposed to are not the same every time. They're random. They're not repeated over and over again. So you have to adapt each time to that new situation, okay, within your training. Block training, on the other hand, is the opposite of that. So everything that you do is just repeated. So you see the same thing over and over and over again. So think about standing in the corner, shooting threes over and over and over again, okay? You don't have to think about much. You don't have to react to anything. You don't have to change anything. You're just shooting. That's block training right there, okay? Working like the Mikan drill, right, where you're just going layups over and over again, that's block training, because there's no sort of there's no changes in that. It's just the same thing repeated over and over again, okay? Even think of something as simple as like layup lines, right? You go layup lines before your games. That's block training, okay? You're just going through your layup lines, kind of that 45-degree angle towards the basket, and finishing it right there every single time. So that's block training. Random training is what I'm talking about here. So we go with like a creative freestyle ball handling drill. That's a example of random training. If I throw a defender on the floor and then they have to guard you, that's random training, because that defender might guard you differently every time. So you have to be able to react and overcome that problem, okay? So that's why, the thing is, I see a ton of players who spend a lot of time, and with the DMs I get, the comments I get, like I know a lot of players spend a lot of time block training. And again, block training is a good thing. Like there's a lot of good that comes out of block training for sure. But we also have to make sure that that's not the only type of training that you do, because that's where you get players who are really, really good in practice. In a workout, they're going to be better shooters, better ball handlers. They're going to do the drills better than everybody else. But then when it comes to a game, and now there's a defender on the floor who's trying to stop them, now there's a help defender who's trying to stop them, then they struggle because they've never had to actually practice overcoming or doing anything that's not, set and predetermined for them, okay? Getting out of just having to do predetermined things is such a big key for you guys who struggle with that, because once you're able to get past that, you're going to have the freedom to really be able to do whatever. Like I said with that Steph Curry example, if you are only working on a couple predetermined things, you're not able to ever experiment. When a defender cuts you off and then reaches for the ball, you might not have anything to go to, right? You might not have that quick behind the back to go to. You might not have that in and out to go to after that. Okay, you might not be able to string those two together. You might be able to go pound behind the back, but can you then go right into an in and out quickly, and then one dribble, and then another behind the back again, one more dribble, kick to your teammate, or one more dribble, floater, one more dribble, dumb down to, like, are you able to string those things together depending on what the situation is? And that's why random training becomes super, super important, because that's where you develop that ability. And that's ultimately what basketball is. Guys who make plays, that's what we're talking about. Guys who are able to string those little reactions together, okay? And that's why it's super important for, us to be able to not just stick with that block stuff. Again, there's definitely times in every workout where you just got to get reps up. You got to get reps up in your finishing. You got to get reps up in your shooting, your ball handling, for example. Like there's definitely times for it, but it's got to be a balance for sure. And there's scientific studies that back this up. They've done studies on basketball, archery, soccer, basically every sort of sport, where they'll take two groups, and one group is going to do strictly block training. One group is going to do strictly random training. And the group that does block training is going to see better gradual increase in results during practices. So if they do the same stuff every day for 2 weeks, they're going to gradually get better every single day. Their numbers in practice are going to look better every single day. That random group, they're getting thrown in a bunch of different stuff. Over those 2 weeks, their results are going to be up and down. One day it'll be good, one day it's going to be bad. There's going to be a slight increase, but it's not going to be linear the way that block training is going to be. It's going to be up and down, up and down. Some days are going to be really, really bad. Some days are going to be really good, because you're getting thrown at, a bunch of situations that aren't predetermined. So it's much more difficult. Okay, but on the surface level, it looks like the group that's doing block training is going to ultimately be better because the results are better in practice. But then you put those two groups in a competition, and the random group outperforms that block group because they've had to be the problem solvers already. They've trained that. Okay, they're used to that. The guys who are doing just block training they're stuck. They're not able to adapt when they see something that's not their exact workout that they've already done. Okay, and that's like getting into a game. So when you have players who, that's why there are players out there who just play, right? They don't really work out, they don't really practice, but they go and they play basketball all the time. And sometimes those players end up being the best players in the team because they just know how to play. They know how to solve problems ultimately, okay? And then the best of both worlds is when you can have both, right? You've got a guy who trains, but he also plays a lot. So they have the skills and they have the understanding, but they also have the problem-solving ability and the ability to be creative that the guy who plays does. So again, it's about finding a balance for both of them. But that's why, again, I'm so big on creativity, because, like I said, all these studies are going to back that up. That when you're in a workout, like if I'm going to work out with a group of guys, sometimes I'll be in a group that's really, really good, guys who can make a lot of shots, guys who are really good athletes, and we'll throw in some random stuff. I'll throw a defender on the floor, or I'll throw two defenders on the floor. We'll go like a 1-on-2 out of like some sort of small-sided game, some sort of disadvantage situation, and all of a sudden, guys can't make anything, right? Where we go 5 minutes and no one makes a shot, no one can score. Okay, but guess what? That's okay, because we're not training to get better at looking good in practice. We're not training to get better at looking good while we're training. We're training to get better at games ultimately. Okay, that's the important part. So something to think about, that when you're doing that random training, guys, when you're doing that the creativity stuff, it might look a little bit worse. It might be a little bit more difficult, but ultimately it's going to pay off for you when you get to the game, which is more difficult, because you have to be able to adapt and overcome and solve problems and see new situations that you haven't seen before. Okay, so we want to make sure that we hit that, even if at the time it feels like, man, I don't know if I'm getting any better. I don't know if this is really hard. Like I don't know if this is the right thing to be doing. But ultimately, guys, we're training to get ourselves prepared to be as good as we can when the lights are on and it matters. So how do we do this, right? How do we add that problem-solving factor, that creativity factor into training when you're by yourself, right? When you're not with a partner, you're not with a group. How are you supposed to do that? There's a couple different ways to do this. But in the perimeter score system, especially in our advanced workouts, even in some of our YouTube workouts, I try and tailor everything to eventually hit or allow for creativity. And, for example, so like I said about earlier, we might do a drill where we're working on attacking a closeout. Maybe we're working on attacking closeout out of a jab. So catch, quick jab, and then we're attacking. And I might say, okay, the first time we're finishing, and you can pick the finish. So that allows you the creativity to say, hey, I might go floater this time, and then next time, boom, I'm going 2-foot finish, and then boom, next time I'm going outside foot finish, or whatever it might be. Next time I'm going reverse, whatever it is. Part of it is you want to be able to, I think a big part when you're by yourself especially is just being like having fun with it, okay, and allowing for some imagination. And that's where the creativity stems from. So if I'm going through that drill where I'm going jab, attack the closeout, well, now I'm imagining that there's a help defender sprinting across the lane, so I've got to stop and go with a little floater. Or now I'm imagining that the help guy's late, and I'm going 2-foot finish, pump fake, getting him to jump, and then I'm finishing right there, okay? Or I might imagine that help defender is there early, and then I can go kind of evasion finish and then reverse on the other side. So that alone right there allows me to be creative and say, oh, there's a guy who's stepping up. So now I get that mental picture in my head of what that defender is actually doing, and then I'm able to react to that. And that's where I get those different finishes. And that's why, like I told you guys earlier, I'm not always going to mandate what you have to do. I'll have players who are actually, I had a player who's in the perimeter score system now who DM'd me. It was like, he sent me a couple different finishes. He's like, hey, coach, can you add these into the assist? Like, can you add these in? And I was like, here's the thing. Like, I allow for so much creativity. If that's the finishes you want to hit, then go for it. Right? That's where you're going to learn exactly like, okay, am I comfortable doing this finish, right? I don't want to tell you have to do this finish every single time, and then you get to a game and a finish that you want to go to, you're not comfortable doing because you never get to work on it. Okay? It's really your time right there to be able to do that. And so we might do that with a finish, and then I might say next, okay, now we're going to go jab, and then we're going to go into some sort of separation move. So we might go step back, we might go punch drag, we might go bump off, we might go between the legs into a one dribble step. Like, again, that's where you're allowed to be creative with what you do. And mind you, we already have repped those out. So that punch drag, like, we're not going straight to that. We've already repped out the punch drag. And in sort of a block style where we're going over and over with those reps, okay? We've repped out the step back as well. So now when we get into those game situations training, like what we're doing with that, with the attack and the closeout, we're having fun, right? We're just enjoying it. I think that's a big part of it. I think that, sometimes when you're just going through the motions of a workout, when you're by yourself and you're getting bored and it's like it's tough to keep going. I think that you finding a way to enjoy yourself while working out is not, obviously it's going to make it more fun, but I think on top of that, it's also going to make it more effective, right? We've all pretended to, go and hit the game-winning shot, right? We've all pretended we're outside and we're in the NBA Finals, and right? Everyone's done that, okay? And I think more of that is actually a really, really good thing, especially when you're by yourself. So why not add in more stuff like that? Why not in those situations that you're working on, relocation, right? You got a guy closing out at you, and boom, you just hit a three to go up by one, right? That can make it not only more intense, more game-like, but also allows you to be able to visualize what's actually happening on the floor, and then you're able to kind of just be like, oh, he steps up there, I go here. Next time he steps up there, I go there. Okay, it's a habit that you build, but that's why I think it all starts with you just having fun, using your imagination, enjoying yourself while you're playing, especially by yourself, and that's where everything's going to come from. Training doesn't have to be boring and just super uninteresting and the same thing over and over again. That you can make it so that it's fun, so that you enjoy doing it. I think that's a big part of starting with the creativity. Okay. And along with that, I have a couple of things I love to do. So I love to go with like what I call shadow ball, where basically you're going to imagine you have a defender on you, right? So you're basically playing one-on-one, and you have that defender who's guarding you. So we might add, like in the perimeter score system, we have segments in workouts where we're just doing that, where we're saying, hey, shadow ball right here, okay? And we might do that out of like a triple threat or like a set situation or a set move. But also we might just say shadow ball, and you might give yourself a 3 dribble limit or a 4 dribble limit, where you're just, again, experimenting, having fun, being creative. And that's a great way, again, to be able to add some creativity to your training, where you're probably going to miss a little bit more shots, but ultimately you're getting better at being creative, which is the important piece of it. Okay. And then, we might also do that with like some different situations where we might say, like we might go like creativity shooting. So we might say, listen, we're going to go 10 shots right here, all off the dribble, anywhere that you want, but it's got to be different every time. So you might go, wing pin down for a 3 on the left wing, and then you might go relocation to the corner. Then you might go, pin down to the elbow, and then you might go flare out to the right wing, and then we're just doing whatever you kind of want to do. Imagining that situation, that screen's coming down to get you, that pass comes from the top, you catch it, shoot. You see your guy driving into the paint, you relocate, catch, and shoot it. So again, allowing that space for you to be creative, and then we might do that off the dribble as well. So we might say, hey, we're going to do this off the dribble. So you might go catch, jab, 2 dribble pull up, catch, jab, between the legs, 1 dribble, step back, boom. We might go like whatever you want it to do, whatever you want it to be. Okay, so that's another thing that I love to do as well, and that I'll add into the perimeter score system as well, and just allow, again, for that creativity and you getting to kind of enjoy yourself. I think that's a big part of it. If you're feeling kind of, you're feeling like you're a little bit bored with your workouts, or you're feeling like you want to add something into your workouts that just going to make it more enjoyable, just take 5, 10, 15 minutes and just shoot around, but make it really, really intense. So really intense, really game-like. Imagine yourself in those game situations. That's really good work for you right there. And on top of that, you're going to enjoy yourself while you're doing it as well. So that's what I think a big key to this is you enjoying yourself, using your imagination. And like I said, guys, when you train more randomly, results are going to go down. Like I said, I work with guys who are really good, and then as soon as I add a defender in there, or I might add a help defender in there, we're missing layups, we're missing shots, we're missing all this, we're losing the ball, all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, that's going to make them better. And that's going to make you better when you actually get into a game situation. So, like I said, we don't train to look good in practice. We train to look good in games ultimately. And that's what random training is going to help you with. So, to end it, though, I will say the single best way to add creativity to your training, or I guess I should say the single best form of random training, is playing. So 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 5-on-5, whatever it might be, whatever you have access to. If you only have a teammate you can work with, your brother or your sister or whatever, like you have somebody you can play against, that ultimately is the best way for you to learn how to solve problems, because now all of a sudden you've got a guy or a girl who's guarding you. Okay, so now you really have to be able to solve things, because that's the ultimate. That's basketball, right? Like I said earlier, they're guys who just play, and for some reason they end up being the better, one of the best players on the team, because they're just used to playing. They solve problems. That's what they do. So once they get into games like that, it's the same thing they've always done. So that's why it becomes super important. But like I said, the being able to mesh those two, being able to mesh the block training with also the random training, is where you really will see the best results. Okay, so once you truly grasp this, guys, this is where you start to see that you'll see those game results really start to take off. And like I mentioned, this is a big part of what we do in the perimeter score system. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and check that out. It's in the description below. And also, I've got some workouts on YouTube that'll hit this stuff too. And I'll be coming out with more stuff too that's going to help you guys with that as well. But hopefully this sheds some light on this topic for you guys. I got questions about it all the time, and it's something that I certainly have gotten more comfortable at, and I've tried hard to learn a lot more about. And there's a lot of people that I watch that do a really good job of this stuff. By Any Means Basketball is great with this sort of stuff. TJL Training, I love that guy's stuff. He does a lot of really, really great stuff with creativity or reactionary stuff and all that sort of that side of training, which is, I think, really, really good. And I think more players are starting to kind of get a grasp on that too. But I think that's where the biggest step is for a lot of players is figuring that out. And that's, again, why I'll always preach creativity, and why I think it's a lot of times the missing key for a lot of players. So again, hopefully this helps you guys out. Like I said at the beginning, guys, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and might read it on the show. If I see it, I'm gonna read it. Okay, so go ahead and leave that for me. And like I said, guys, you're in YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe if you're new. Leave a like. Give me a follow on Instagram at Vision Driven Basketball. And if you have any questions, DM me. And just give me a follow anyway because I'm posting all the time. And I will talk to you guys soon. Peace.